Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday hosted by Cal State Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. We're here for Webinar Wednesday number 364. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Bearden. I'm going to be your host today. Got a great program coming up. Going to be talking about a lot of things in the workforce and the future workforce and the future of work and all of the current trends, or maybe a few of the current trends facing employment these days. But finding capable young workers, some strategies is our topic today, and let's get rolling. And today we're jumping into considerations that we're going to have with our future workforce. So we're going to look at the younger members of our workforce and how they may benefit our local small businesses. So we'll get into some of those strategies for longer term small business hiring. I think this topic really, when I looked at it, was really kind of fascinating from my standpoint because of those businesses that are going to need employees over a longer term and are looking to grow a particular business over a longer 3 to 5 year period and the dramatic changes that could happen in that period. So we'll be covering that with our special guest today, Dr. Mark Evans. We'll also touch on our economic corner, which covers, it covers the topic today. So it's going to stay on the jobs and employment side of things. But look at a lot at the micro hiring and things that are going on that a real economist would do rather than just a faux economist like myself. But since Economic Corner is a weekly column that we get into, we're going to stick to Economic Corner this week. Just a brief jump into our other weekly column, and that's the Capital Quarter, and talk a little bit about the survey that we've been promoting and the value that we get from that survey, some community events and happenings that are coming on, some news resources. We will take your questions live at the conclusion of today's presentation. So jump into the Q&A box, or we will also usually circuit our way through the chat box and find questions that are submitted there. So that is fine also. But there is going to be some resources that we chat about today in the chat box that'll be placed there by our executive producer, Maureen Busherdang, and no poll today. So a lot going on. So we're going to skip the poll this week. We'll be back next time with the particular poll. And we're going to be talking a little bit on topic today with Economic Corner with our labor market. It's how it's rapidly evolving and corporate cuts that are starting to go on. We're going to discuss a practice that was going on for quite a while when we had a shortage. You remember, it wasn't that long ago, only a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, where labor shortages were one of the biggest issues impacting small business and larger businesses for that matter. So the practice of labor hoarding with a lot of the larger businesses that could afford that really kind of took place in a lot of different areas and now is apparently going away. We've talked a little bit about since August, the artificial intelligence affecting entry-level college graduates that came out. And this was a study by 3 professors at Stanford University. And they came out and showed where things were already happening with entry-level college students looking for entry-level positions and they named the culprit as being AI. So we'll touch on that just briefly and go from there. We'll just show you our national unemployment rate, which is 4.3%, and that is up from a low of 3.4%. So labor is actually becoming more plentiful for employers, and also from the standpoint of some of the things that are going on with employees that is driving that up. And also, just lastly, on Economic Corner, our SBA district offices and those that provide direct services are currently paused. So a little reminder of that. Hopefully that goes away relatively soon. So just a little note on labor hoarding. It was especially pronounced in higher wage jobs and those employees that were harder to find and therefore more costly to train and also to lose. So they tended to be in tech industries and other profession industries, and they were mid-size and larger companies that could afford to carry the additional labor. So that overlap now is being affected by AI, among other things, of course. And some of those industries are now shedding excess labor that they had been hoarding. And what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of cutback in corporate America. So we're seeing corporate America cutting their workforce. You see Amazon, 14,000 jobs. UPS mentioned just this last week that it was cutting 48,000 or had cut 48,000 managerial and operations positions. Target 1,800, and also Walmart, Ford, JP Morgan Chase, and others said that with advances that they're seeing with artificial intelligence, that they will soon be cutting as well. And there are other corporate entities that are cutting also. So you're starting to see a lot of these jobs that are particularly in the white collar area that are being cut back and really creating a surplus in some certain industries for talent out there. Now I had to show you this because when corporate America cuts jobs, sometimes they come up with some really nice reasons for that. And Target, we had mentioned, ended 1,800 jobs for individuals. And they said that there were too many layers and overlapping work that slowed decisions, making it harder to bring ideas to life. So I kind of found that, well, I found it interesting, but it came, especially since it came from Michael Fidelki, who's the CEO of Target. But it just like too many layers and overlapping work. I can see where you get some of the overlapping work and maybe some of the layers, but bringing ideas to life. I didn't see how having fewer people really fostered that idea and that thinking. Okay, so that is our community, or that is our economic corner for today. Also, the community calendar, which is, of course, a resource of all good things happening. And tonight, just wanted to invite you to the 6th Annual Small Business Finance event. We will be participating along, well, not the SBA because of the closure, but we'll have some representatives from lenders. We'll have some insurance, academia, others that are sharing successes and stories, and really a good program that the Financial Management Club of Cal State Bakersfield puts on each and every year. And that is free tonight at the CSUB Student Union from 5 until, I believe, 7 p.m. So one of the things that is we're really rapidly involved with, not only at our SBDC, but nationally SBDCs, and that is a little thing called AI University or AIU. And with that, right now, we have 24 states that are participating in student engagement projects. We are actually working on half a dozen of those right now that we're starting. And we're going to be actually, announcing later in this webinar, some way that maybe your business can participate with our student groups. But really what we're getting into with a lot of this is that, and a lot of our guest presentation today is going to be on the future of work. And so the future of work is looking differently already. It's looking differently at our SBDC, where some of our staff is now AI certified, and we will have more of them that come on board with this Google AI certification. Our capital quarter, which is of course the abbreviated section this week. And of course you see, the thing that I just love, that legal tender gold certificate, $100,000 bill. You'll recall that we have told you that it is worth about $2.5 million if you have one of these now. But what a great model for our capital quarter, our access to capital, and getting our small business clients and those others the money that they need to start, grow, or expand their particular businesses. So with that comes this credit survey that we've talked about that is done annually by the Federal Reserve banks. And of course, there are 12 Federal Reserve banks, and they do a national survey on this in order to find out some of the needs of small businesses. And it's incredibly valuable for us in trying to see where to put our resources in accessing capital, where we can help small businesses get their capital. And it comes out, if we get 50 or more signups, we get our own subset of the data. So it is a 12-minute survey. It is a little bit lengthy, and it asks questions in a lot of different areas, not only operations and profitability and the amount of debt that you cover, but a lot of other things that end up being quite useful when we get our own data, such as demand for financing. So what we learned in this was, and our data now is almost 2 years old. So last year we didn't participate in this. So we're really looking to see the differences that happened in 2023 and 2025. But really the demand for financing is something that was pretty consistent from, you see the blue of our CSU Bakersfield SBDC territory, and then also that of the gray, which is the US employer firms in general. So it is going to be interesting to see if we have similar demands that they're having across the country. Now, one thing we also saw were some of the operational challenges, and this one does show a great deal of diversity or great differences from the national numbers. And again, we had 104 of you that reportedly answered this question, and it showed a lot of the things, but the ones that I found interesting were some of the challenges were not related to hiring and retaining quality staff. And this was in 23 during that time frame. So it's rather, I think, fascinating that whereas much of the country was having more of a hiring or retaining quality staff than we had, our issues were complying with regulations and to a limited degree also utilizing technology and reaching customers and growing sales. Now, it's really interesting for this 2023 survey question on utilizing technology, because I had to pull the definition of technology in here because it was then using websites, e-commerce, social media, and cybersecurity. And you could select multiple options. But I've got to think that there's now going to be an AI function in there as far as utilizing technology. So with the differences and the impact that it has made on larger and also small businesses. So that I think is a fascinating aspect as well as the amount of debt outstanding at the time, finding out the amount of debt that we have. And if you look at this particular slide, you'll see that we have more respondents that actually showed no debt outstanding, more respondents that showed 100,000 or less as far as debt, but more than 100,000, we were substantially smaller than the national average. So this told us that a lot of our businesses and some of the other data that we had younger firms that responded to this and a more diverse population in rural communities, and maybe the larger funding were for the ones for the rest of the United States and not so much for those that responded from our territory. So really, it's great data and great information, and I hope you do participate in there. I know that Maureen will have the slide in the link to where you can go to the survey. And again, you don't have to answer any questions. If some offend you, don't answer them. If some of them aren't pertinent or they aren't relevant to your particular business, don't answer them. Some of those slides that we had respondents from about 30 or 40 people all the way up to about 115 or 20. So if it works, it works, right? So our YouTube channel is where all these videos go, and we see a few of them on this particular slide that's a little old, because you'll notice it only says we have only 482 subscribers. So that was a few weeks ago. However, now we are at 500 subscribers. We had a little contest. Are you our 500 subscriber? Let us know if you are. Maybe we have a prize for you. So it's really great that we have now over 500 subscribers. Thank you for allowing us to jump in and go look at any of our 319 videos. Oh, could that have been your wonderful subscribe and win prize? I think it was. So one thing I did mention was that in talking about AI is that we're soon going to announce, you can actually email us right now if you're interested in wanting information on this, but we're going to have a little application process throughout the rest of the year to where we're going to use our student intern that are actually well adapted to AI or adapting right now as we speak. and really kind of come up with some AI projects to help businesses that are not fully implemented artificial intelligence and where we can find that have the greatest benefit from using AI. And these will be resources that hopefully the business can take and use. So a little feature, a little look back in the day on Webinar Wednesday. It was 2 years ago this week that our special guest back on Webinar Wednesday 298 was Ben Nicholson. And Ben was with Fortis Company, Fortis Business Advisors, and really focuses on businesses that are really debt heavy to help them resolve merchant credit issues and abuse that they might have, and really refinancing that kind of debt and some of the other fintech debt at very high interest rates is not easy to do. And a lot of it is already prepaid interest, and you might not want to do it anyway, other than to get some break on your cash flow. So just a little look back at some of the things that you will find on YouTube in our YouTube channel if you want to go back and search and look at it. To become a client, an SBDC client, where it is, of course, free, there is no cost, obligation, no obligation, confidential, you can meet with our expert consultants, some of the great talent that we're amassing from our students, our College of Business and Public Administration students. So some really great stuff that's going on in those particular areas. Sign up at CSUBSBDC.com. And really great to have all of our great sponsors allow us to be here every particular week. A big shout out to all 6 of them you see up on the screen right now. So that brings us to our special guest today. And our special guest today is, of course, our resident economist, our Webinar Wednesday resident economist, Dr. Mark Evans. He is also, in addition to that lofty title of Webinar Wednesday resident economist, he is an emeritus professor of economics with over 40 years at CSUB. During his 40 years of leadership at the university, he provided great leadership in a couple of areas specifically. One is being the Associate Dean of the College of Business and Public Administration, and also as the Economics Department Chair, of which he chaired for many years the Economics Department and the fine team of economists at CSUB. It's a great pleasure to have him back. Dr. Evans, take it away.
Thanks for joining us for lunch today, folks. We're going to be talking about recruiting capable young workers at the level of your company and then at the level of our community. How can we increase the numbers of those capable young workers? This slide shows some things that we've mentioned in past small business updates on Webinar Wednesday. All of them labor force related, dealing with hiring challenges, finding qualified applicants, employee disengagement, and artificial intelligence, just the great need that small businesses have for acquiring the expertise and the training, which is something that we'll probably circle around and talk again as the day goes on. Okay, so why focus on young workers? Well, if you look at the supply of prime age workers, 25 to 54, and you look at forecasts a decade ahead or so, what you see is this number is probably going to be stable at best and possibly decline depending on what happens to immigration policies over the next few years. So as you grow, as you need more workers, or as your prime age workers retire, you're going to have to focus more and more on young workers. They do have many upsides. Lower hiring costs, faster to fill job rates at this level, which lead to lower vacancy costs. They're more flexible in terms of scheduling. And our big concern today is AI, faster tech adoption, the younger people are. They claim our DNA doesn't change much over time, but I swear these younger generations have something in their AI in their DNA relating to using technologies that I don't have. And then finally, obviously, the most cost-effective leadership pipelines, whether you're talking about part-time to full-time or worker to lead worker, or if you can do it internally by hiring young people and then letting them grow over time. That said, there's some challenges. What we have here is, well, first of all, let me say that what we used to say is, recruit somebody with a high school diploma or recruit somebody with a college diploma, depending on the job. And that was how you decided, that's how you created your pool. There has been grade inflation. There has been social promotion have evolved over time as policies. So there's a need for some indicators of whether a young person graduating from high school is really ready for college or ready for a career. So the State Department of Education decided that we really needed some indicators that go beyond whether the person had the diploma or not. So at the state level, we came up with a bunch of different indicators that if you met any one of them, they would designate you as basically prepared for college or a career. And then part of the California accountability data system is to tabulate for each school and each district what percentage of graduates truly are prepared. Some examples of some of these indicators. One is that you've completed a career and technical education pathway, plus you've met at least one of the standards for English or mathematics, one of those two standards. Another pathway that would get you designated as being career or college ready is that you've completed the A through G course pattern required to get admitted to the UC CSU. Another way to be designated as you're ready for the real world is that you've met both of the standards on the norm tests, both English and math, or and then a fourth one, and there's many of these, but these are the four that if you look at Kern High School District, almost everybody that's designated as college or career ready has met one of these four benchmarks here. The fourth one being that you took 2 college courses, passed while you were in high school, passed them with at least a C, and you can meet at least one of these 2 standards, English or math. Okay, so grade inflation, social promotion. I guess those are realities because only 41% of our grads from the Kern High School District meet at least one of these 4 standards here. That sounds bad, but California, it's only 45%. So we're really not that far behind the state norm. Now, those students that meet the standard, how did they meet it? About 70% met it because they completed the course admission requirements for the UC, the CSU. Okay, so 71% completed all the courses you need to be prepared for college. Yet interestingly, only 36% of our students could pass both the English and the math proficiency standards for 11th grade. So we do have challenges. These challenges go deep and they start early. Something getting a lot of attention these days is the so-called boy problem of disengagement, loss of motivation, purpose. We're finding that the disengagement from school starts very early. Boys are just, for the most part, not developmentally ready to sit still all day and in kindergarten and start memorizing their ABCs and numbers. Digital immersion is crowding out everything in the real world. Just undeveloped sense of agency and identity. So the performance data is there. There's some underlying drivers that are really serious and difficult to deal with, especially as smartphones just take over entire lives. my question is, how do you navigate this uncertainty in hiring young workers? Because you're going to need them. They do have tremendous upside if you can find the right ones, but you're operating in a pool here where there are maybe not as many people that are capable and prepared as you would hope. Okay, in 2001, three economists won the Nobel Prize for their analyses of markets with information asymmetries, where people didn't have perfect information. And labor markets is an obvious example here, where you're interviewing people that you can assume they're putting their best face forward during the interview or on their resume, but what do you really know about them? There's tremendous uncertainty. And what these economists found is that really the Moneyball strategies strategies very prevalent. You might recall from Moneyball that what Billy Beane did with the Oakland A's is he identified background characteristics that he discovered highly correlate with the desired outcomes that he wanted, which is basically the ability of a player to create runs. And teams were using all sorts of, their scouting departments were using all sorts of metrics, but they weren't necessarily using the right ones. They were using ones that have gone down from generation to generation among the scouting community. So he discovered that things like on-base percentage mattered a lot in terms of run creation, but nobody was really using it to really screen who they would want to put on their roster. Anyway, these economists found that businesses often develop competitive advantage by being able to discover some of these things that they could use for screens and filters that their competition was unaware of. And that's exactly what Billy Beane did. So I guess what I'm suggesting is you use this same strategy within your business. Now, how do you do this? Somehow or other, if you could figure out what background characteristics really are highly correlated with what you're looking for, then you can embed this screening into your recruiting and hiring by targeting young workers that have come from programs or activities where in general, you know that whoever participates in these programs have the desired characteristics. And then secondly, develop relationships with these programs, whether it be a school program, instructor, a director of a nonprofit, et cetera. And you nurture these relationships, create apprenticeships and sponsorships, and then use that as your primary recruiting tool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention three programs that I've found in our county that really are exemplary programs. One being things going in the high school district, another being an after-school program, the third being a summer program. If I were doing this thing a month from now, I probably would be highlighting the SBDC Artificial Intelligence University program. So later on when we talk about this, you could keep that in mind. So let's talk about what's working in the schools. The ROC CTEC program. What this is it's students, they have a home school, okay, but they attend this home high school just in the morning or just in the afternoon. And then the 3-hour block where they're not in their home school, they go by bus to one of the two school sites, either the ROC site or the CTEC site on Old River. They're in one of 38 programs. These are basically occupational programs for that they're the one that they're interested in. And then every program will have basically two objectives: to teach them technical skills relevant for that occupation, but also cutting across all 38 programs, soft skill or career readiness skills, where everybody participates in writing a resume, professional etiquette, professional experience, mock interviews, etc. And in both of these areas, there's actually employer surveys where employers provide feedback to the high school district on whether the students they're seeing really meet their expectations. Okay, tremendous outcomes. Students are graduating at a very high rate, but they're graduating at a pretty high rate regardless, but they're well on their way to continuing post-secondary education, they're earning a lot of college credits, they're earning a lot of industry certifications, believe it or not. And then almost 1,000 of them are completing internships in around 300 businesses in town. Parent surveys as well as student surveys, there's almost unanimous satisfaction with what is being provided in terms of career readiness skills as well as technical skills. If you look at the 6-month follow-up, which is really looked at only for the CTEC and ROCT program and not the high school district in general. So it'd be nice if we could compare, but we can't. But you see here that about 71% of the graduates from this program are still going to school of some type, either community college or 4-year school. The average for the high school district is around 50%, so that's a 40% increase. Around half of them are employed, around 5% in the military. This adds to more than 100% because a graduate can meet more than one criterion. Okay, what's happening here is great, but there's similar programs throughout the country, and they've been studied by scholars, and the research is very positive, both for programs at the national level as well as detailed programs for similar programs in other states. Some of the findings, people coming out of this type of a high school program, 21% more likely to graduate, statistically significant gains relative to the control group and these core subject knowledges, more likely to enroll in a community college, while they're also equally likely to enroll in a 4-year college, more likely to be employed post-high school. Males, you look at the earnings profile of males, and by age 23, in the Connecticut study, they were earning more each and every year after they hit 23, had they come out of one of these types of programs. I talked to the principal, Mr. Miller. He gave me forwarded me one email he got from an instructor. He gets these things every week. Okay, for example, a student we will call him John, that's not his name. He enrolled in the auto tech program last year, came in with purple hair, baggy pants, no direction whatsoever. He thought he wanted an internship. The program offered internships on a selective basis, second semester. He was unsuccessful in getting the internship. And then his instructors simply gave him some tough love. They told him, John, you're just not competitive right now. But they worked with him on his professional etiquette, his soft skills. Everybody has to do a mock interview at the end of the year. John performed so well in his mock interview that he was offered a paid summer internship on the spot by the person from Wonderful who interviewed him. And again, that was not Wonderful's intention that day. It was simply to help people practice doing interviews, but he was so impressed, he gave the young man a job on the spot. And then this year he went to his instructors and volunteered to give presentations to students just starting out on the importance of soft skills and professional etiquette. So I think that's one area that you may want to nurture relationships and consider, getting some people in your recruitment pool. Another possibility, what's working after school, our Boys and Girls Clubs of Kern County. Similar programs also have some amazing outcomes. So the purpose of this is to fill the gap between school and when parents get home. When I was a kid, you walked to the boys club or walked to the girls club. They're now operating after school programs on 71 school sites in the county. They also run a summer program. They have a lot of teen programs that are really geared toward job readiness, career planning, that sort of thing. These Boys and Girls Clubs programs have been researched. Scholars have found that in California, for every dollar we spend on these programs, they probably they generate around $7.60 worth of benefit. Let me look at some of the areas that they've looked at here. Okay, what are the benefits that they've tried to look at? Academic improvements, but then they've looked at the likely future earnings based on those better outcomes. Lower public assistance in the future, reduced risky behaviors, avoided costs from addictions, crime, teenage pregnancies, etc. Another big benefit is they found that parents of these kids that are going to the boys club were able to work more hours, so there was an increase in their family income. On the right is a chart from just Kern County, and there's between 14 and 15,000 kids in Kern County that are registered at the Boys and Girls Clubs and participate. Even more amazing that more than 8,215 attend on average every day of the school year. Okay, this is number one nationally. We have the Boys and Girls Club here in Kern County that has the highest average daily participation in the United States. So again, does it matter? Testimonials, if you talk to the directors of these programs, the one on the left here of an adult alumnus is many, many like this. The boys club is my reason for success. I was surrounded by gang violence. One of my siblings was killed by gang violence. My other siblings are homeless, but this person went on to become a Marine veteran, and he now works in the community, basically working with youth. Okay, what's working in summers? Summer camps. They do a good job, okay? RM Pyles, one of the best. Here's a testimonial. I didn't think my life would change as much as it did, because before I came to this camp, I was thinking of harming myself. On the left, you see parent surveys of all sorts of character traits that we value highly, how they've improved after the camp. Again, a lot of national studies that have shown that summer camps and summer programs have really good outcomes in terms of academics, social skills, emotional well-being, leadership skills, future crime prevention. Why these programs work, I think they all involve a broader range of capacities than simply sitting in school and learning to read, write, and calculate. They really engage all of our multiple capacities and intelligences. They direct or address head-on the disengagement epidemic that's starting very young with kids. They basically give kids, what they're looking for. And for a retention strategy, you look at the same elements of these programs and then ask yourself, can I incorporate more of these elements really into the jobs that I create for these young people? Okay, that's great, but there aren't as many of these capable young people as we would like. What do we do? I think we increased the scale and scope. You look at the ROC CTEC program, they have room for 2,400 students a year. They have 6,600 applicants. There's a framework for career and technical education for California, grades 7 through 12. We're just touching the surface, and that we have something going at the 11th and 12th grade level, but that's it. You look at this just shows that there's benefit cost studies have been done. These CTEC programs have huge net benefits, a benefit cost ratio of about 3. We can expand to elementary and middle school, this idea of technical and career education. We're the anomaly. You look around the world, all the countries in Europe, the developed countries in Asia, they all take this career technical education stuff back to kindergarten. We can expand school and after school programs finally, and then basically what can you do as individuals? There's a role here for all of us in terms of mentoring, supporting these programs, and then advocating with our political leaders and school districts that they need to move resource allocation in these directions. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to converse.
Great, Doctor. Fantastic stuff. Okay, so now's a chance for you, if you have any questions, to talk about any of the things we've discussed or more. A great opportunity to jump in and ask those particular questions at this point. So if not, I will start asking a couple of questions, and they might even be off topic, who knows? But first of all, let's jump in, and I don't see any questions yet in the question and answer box. So let's go through our chat box and go through some of the resources that have been discussed today. So after some greetings and salutations, there's the link for the Federal Reserve Bank National Survey. Thank you, Maureen, for putting that in there. And also, if you do have an AI project, there's the link to let us know that you might be interested in participating in that and seeing how AI can impact or affect your particular business. Okay, great. Here's a question, and it's on the second block. So we need to figure out what slide it was, around 1237. So the second block makes it seem like during the full first semester, no professional etiquette, soft skills are taught. Is oftentimes that the case, Doctor?
No, that is not the case at all. It starts at the beginning, but if you get a young person coming into the program, that's where they're coming from, you're not going to change them in a day or a week. Plus the interviews would have to take place, for the internships well before the end of the first semester, probably middle of the semester. So at that point in time, the teachers have only had probably about a month or so, 6 weeks to work with the students. So, and you're talking about some very ingrained habits that are going to take a while to work on, as all of us know that have had kids.
Or grandkids.
Or grandkids.
Allegedly, anyway. Okay, so a follow-up question to that is the ROC CTEC program specifically designed for young adults that have some kind of adversity? Good question.
Good question. No, it is a program open. It's basically a high school program, part of the Kern High School District, and it's open to any student in the high school district. And you would apply. There are, as part of the school district, there are accommodations for students with special needs, just like there would be for a regular classroom. So, and as I think I mentioned on one of the slides, the college going rate increases by, I think it was 20% or so in terms of community college attendance, and without falling for the 4-year colleges. So these are just regular kids of all stripes that are eligible to attend this program. It's not a special needs or targeted program for any group.
And those are a little different from the programs that are offered from ETR, the Employers Training Resource, through America's Job Center and the Workforce Development Board. Whereas oftentimes for youth to access and adult youth to access some of those programs, they do require some type of challenge. So there needs to be some form of a challenge in many cases, not always, but in many cases to participate in those programs. We also see a link here for Maureen for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Kern County, if you want more information on that. And also the RM Pyles Boot Camp Boys Program. Okay, so that's our chat. Couple questions in there. Got another question popping in here. And first question here is going to be, how do we get career training into junior high levels?
I think that's a great question. And I think it's, let's go back to Moneyball and the Oakland A's. Billy Beane, he discovered metrics that were highly important that nobody even knew they were important at that time. And I think there's very few people that actually recognize that there's tremendous payoff if we get it into the middle schools. And I think we have to just be advocates. I think this is not going to happen unless we as citizens advocate that, with school boards, that every other country in the world is doing this that's developed, and many of them do not have quite the problems we have with disengagement, and we have to sell it. And we have the data, the studies that show that the benefit cost ratio is quite high, and it's just a matter of there's a tremendous need for education here, educating our community leaders, as well as citizens demanding it. I have a kid in junior high. Why can't we do some of this then? When I went to elementary school, I had to do workshop or wood shop. When I went to middle school, I had to do electrical shop. Why don't we require that of my kids, my grandkids?
I still have my duck from 7th grade, my wooden duck that we made in wood shop. So see, you can't throw them away, can you? Okay, so a couple other things. Many of us have watched Moneyball several times. Okay, next question is, what area would a potential employer search on the ROC CTEC site to get more information on potential exploring internships?
I'm just guessing here, but my guess is if you go to the website, there will be a link where you could contact the principal, Mr. Brian Miller, and if not, simply give him a call, and I think he'd be pleased to get back with you and explore the opportunity for developing an internship.
It sounds like there's a great opportunity to have some form of catalog for all of the internship programs that are available in Kern County. I know we have some at CSUB, other organizations, other business organizations, economic development groups are involved in doing internship projects. Obviously, the ones you talked about, Doctor, but it seems like that would be a good little resource to have handy for employers.
It would. I made an earlier presentation of this type for Kern Leadership Academy, and I showed a slide in that presentation that gave the benefit cost ratio for internship programs in general that were not that had even no job preparation or counseling component at all, or counseling, just
Mhm.
straight internships and no requirement that you be from a designated group or whatever. And in general, those programs had a benefit cost ratio. I think it was in the neighborhood of 7 or so, $7 of benefit for every dollar of cost. So internship programs have been studied to death, and the evidence is overwhelming that they more than pay for themselves.
Well, I took a swing and a miss there, speaking to Moneyball. I whiffed. I was fishing for Dr. Evans to say he would gladly, for his next appearance on Webinar Wednesday, come back with that complete compilation of internships available to youth in Kern County. But we'll work on that.
We'll work on it.
We'll work on that. Okay, any last questions before we move along for Webinar Wednesday number 364? Are these internships that employers have paid or unpaid?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know that some of them are paid, but I don't know if all of them are
I
paid.
think most are paid these days. The period of what I see around CSUB these days, the age and era of the unpaid intern, unless you have a position that is really going to be something that a student is looking for long-term employment or long-term opportunity or something along those lines. But if it is just gaining experience in a particular business, and maybe they don't have a future at the SBDC, for example, then that would be a paid internship. So that's typically what I think I see most of the time.
Yeah, I know that's the case for Cal State, just as you've described it. But for ROC CTEC, my impression is that most, if not all of them, are paid in some way.
Got to keep that
But
motivation and
not
incentive going, Doctor.
exactly, and it's not like it's a huge cost for the potential return.
No, because usually internships, they start at minimum wage and can go up from there. But oftentimes they don't include any fringe benefits at all. So you don't have any holidays, vacation, sick time benefits that you would have with a normal employee potentially.
And it's easy to end it if it doesn't go well.
And there's always usually an ending date for that. It's usually a specific date for us here. Oftentimes it's a semester-long internship that has the potential to renew. So, okay, check to see any last questions come in. Here's your last shot. Running out of time today. Well, thank you, Doctor, for an enlightening discussion on workforce development issues that are just really changing everything in workforce development. Everything in the labor force and the labor market, exciting times.
Oh, my pleasure. Let's get together and try to compile an internship list.
Why don't we have an intern do that?
Let's have an intern. Let's hire an intern. Do that.
Okay, so that's going to wrap us up for Webinar Wednesday number 364. We'll be back next Wednesday, number 365. For my special guest over here, Mark Evans, Dr. Mark Evans. I'm Kelly Bearden. We'll be back then. Everybody have a great time. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.